CountryWide Connect with Andy Thompson and Sarah Perriam-Lampp.
We will just catch up right now with Ryan Luckman. G'day, mate.
Hey.
Welcome to the show. Thank you for your time.
No, thanks for having me.
No, I really appreciate it. I didn't know you were standing or sitting down there behind us. I was nervously looking around to see where you were. But
we did conveniently share an Uber from the airport this morning, so I knew that was your fear, so I didn't make it come true.
Yes, no, I did might have hammered that point home slightly, didn't I? But hey, look, fantastic to have you here. You haven't done your presentation yet, have you?
No, that's next up. Yep.
Okay. Well, I did in my intro, I might have expressed a fair amount of ignorance when it came to your product, DAGI, and also when it came to fecal egg counts, because you're like me, you have been a dairy farmer, but you've gone to the dark side a bit. Is that right?
Well, a vet working with mainly dairy cows.
Yeah, right.
So I was mainly a dairy vet, but I came over to what Jenny Dodansky describes as the data desert of the sheep and beef world.
Right. Well, okay.
And trying to solve issues there instead.
Okay. Well, let's dig into it. So here at the Ag Innovation Conference, obviously, we're talking about agricultural innovation, DAGI, which is an app, I assume, but I have no idea really what it is and why it's important. So I didn't know anything till I got in the Uber, and conveniently it was a 15-minute ride. So I did learn quite a bit. But instead of me mangling it and butchering it, why don't you tell the audience what DAGI is and why you're here?
Cool. Yeah, no, we'll take a sec. So DAGI is my favorite dad joke because it stands for Drench and Grazing Integration App. So essentially what we're trying to do is, we know we've got this massive issue with drench resistance. More than a third of farms across the country with triple drench resistance, and it's causing major issues.
Is it that bad?
Yeah, it's proper bad.
Yeah,
it's at the stage where people are having to act.
So we're assuming the whole audience is rural here, but talk to me. So just 101, why is it so bad? What is the problem with that?
I guess what the problem is we've created a system and it works amazingly. So historically, we used to do what we'd call calendar-based drenching. So we would say drench a flock every 3 or 4 weeks. What that did was stopped any egg output, which stopped larval contamination on the paddocks. And so we just had basically clean paddocks most of the time. And so that worked really well for intensifying how we grazed, and we could often run lamb finishing paddocks where we just cycle lambs around and get them up to practice, and it worked really well. The downside was what happened is we selectively picked for resistance. So only worms with genetics that survived that drench got to breed with each other. And now we're at the point where that whole system falls over because...
So we bred the smart ones.
We bred the smart ones, and now often when we drench, it's only the smart ones that survive. And therefore you don't get that same clean paddocks coming out. And so we get lambs falling over, lambs dying, and
Okay. So, all right. So that's the problem. You're obviously the solution. What is the solution?
So the solution...
drench, we used to think drench was the solution, right? But that's actually become part of the problem.
Yeah. So drench still has to be part of the solution.
Yes.
It's not going away. But what we have to be smarter with the other parts of this thing. So Wormwise has a really cool acronym that they've come up with now, which is FARMED, very easy to remember. So feeding, avoidance, refugia, monitoring, and effective drenching.
Okay, feeding, avoiding, refugia, monitoring, effective drenching.
Yeah.
Okay, explain refugia, because that's a term, I've heard it, but I don't understand it.
Okay, so refugia, if you think we were just breeding the smart worms just before, what we've got to do is, in essence, have enough dumb worms out there so that they can breed with the smart worms and make kids that sit at the back of the class that will fall for the drench, if we want.
You're actually talking about me in English there, so or math. So anyway, okay. So we need dumb worms.
We need dumb worms out there, not just all the smart worms. So it's about retaining those dumb worms on your farm, because essentially 90% of worms actually live in the pasture. And so especially in New Zealand, where we don't have those extreme heats like Australia, the pasture is kind of a massive reservoir of these dumb worms.
Okay.
Hopefully.
So refugia then is that. Okay, so farmed, F-A-R-M-E-D. And so then, so you know that. So where does DAGI come in?
So DAGI is around the A and the R, so the avoidance and the refugia. So at the moment, avoidance is one of the critical ones. So we know that actually what causes a lot of the clinical signs and the disease and the slow growth rates is actually eating the larvae, which are part of the life cycle of these worms, which sit on the grass or on the herbage. And so when animals eat them, they don't grow as fast. So if we can avoid them in the first place, then that is fantastic. And we see it, like anyone who's got, summer finishing lambs on crop or anything like that will see the effect of putting them on a crop, which is essentially clean, what that does. The issue is we've only got so much land that we can do that with. We've got other issues. And so what we end up having to do is when we think about it, we've got how do we know where those larvae are? Because they're microscopic. I don't know if you've ever seen the magic little blade of grass with a whole heap of larvae. You can't see them. So essentially what DAGI is doing is you put in your stock movements around your farm, you put in any drenching you do, and you put in any fecal air counts, and it tracks and predicts where these larvae are actually sitting on your farm and gives you a traffic light essentially. So you've got your reds to your greens. And so when you go to do your grazing, you can go, right, this is, lamb finishing tucker, really high energy, but actually it's red hot, contaminated with larvae. If I put my lambs on there, they're not going to grow very well. And so it's giving you that tool to see it.
Right. And the other thing that I like about this, by talking about refugia, is that effectively, if you do this right, you're actually going to be saving yourself money, right?
Oh,
which is that's a plus.
Yeah. And that's the cool thing about, because we think getting rid of this complete reliance on drenching will be a big cost to the system. But a lot of people have actually found if we start being smart about our avoidance, they grow quicker, we drench less, they get off farm quicker, so it's all positives in the productivity.
So, okay, so farmers using the system then, what sort of results are they seeing?
Well, we will tell you soon.
Oh,
so we're in what we call a beta phase testing at the moment. So we've got farmers putting in their data, and hopefully this week we'll have their colours up, so their heat maps. So we've got these basically 2 heat maps running in the back of their system. So one is this one around avoidance, so how contaminated are all the paddocks. But then we talked about those smart and dumb worms. In the system we call them red and green worms. And so we're tracking those as well. So we've got a separate heat map to look at this refugia portion or the resistance risk.
So how long have you been developing this product? Obviously you're to a beta stage at the moment, so that's good. So how long have you been on it?
It's just over 2 years, 2 and a bit years, yeah.
Right. And so what's you do this and then what? Full rollout?
Yeah, so timeline plan is everything goes to plan in the next 2 weeks. Then we'll look at a mini second beta, just stress test the system, and then hoping to do a wider launch by field days.
Oh, cool. Field days.
Yeah,
the magic field days launch. Yep. Yeah. There's plenty of products launched at field days. And then I guess for me, and I'm going to talk to my next guest about this, tools versus toys. For something like this to be successful, for farmers to take it up and use it, it's got to be simple and intuitive. If it's too hard, no matter how good it is, it's like, it's just too hard, right? You've got that nailed in it?
We think so, yes. I guess when I built this tool, I came from, as I said, a dairy background, and I did a lot of work with cow wearables and cow collars. And we came across that right from the beginning, where if you required someone to put data in or do an entry point, that's when the system broke down. So we've tried to make this as simple as possible.
So how does the data get in there?
They still have to put a movement in. So I have to move a stock and I have to do a fecal air count. But essentially everything else we could have is automated. So we estimate age, weight, energy intake. We automatically pull in weather data. So everything else is automated. And I guess the second part of that is there's got to be some reward for putting in data or doing compliance, because no one likes that and so the colours and the fact that they're getting knowledge on what's happening and what I call closing the feedback loop or shortening the feedback loop. So dairy farmers get it really easy, don't they? You milk a cow, you find out how much milk went into the vat that next morning, you know, kind of how well you did that day. The feedback loop in the sheep world is a lot slower. And so we've got a history tab in here where you can actually see, right, I did this movement, this movement, this movement. It's resulted in these colors. So, you know, this is kind of the result of the grazing.
It's funny you should say that, because I always used to find that when I was farming, when I was milking, it was the challenge of beating your target the next day, whether that's a day target, season target, yearly, you know, whatever. And then you get a drought and just blow it out the window or something. And it's like, oh, damn it, I have to reset. But so it's self-imposed, I suppose, that, isn't it, that challenge? But that is a very, very good motivator.
Yeah. And we've shown it to a few people, like even outside of industry, and one's a gamer, and he kind of almost calls it gamifying the industry. So you've got an app which is kind of rewarding you for good behaviors and giving you greens. And
well, the idea would be to have the whole thing green, right? But
yeah, well, we have made it a ranking system. So with the farm contamination, eventually we might get to a stage where we can say you're green compared to your neighbour's red, or but at the moment all your paddocks are ranked, because we know you've got to use one of those paddocks. Yeah.
On that, and I'm always interested in this when it comes to financials or farm data, that it's anonymised. Is there benchmarking through this? As such,
long term, that's, I think, one of the powerful things we'll be able to create, because actually when you look at across the industry, there is very little record of what sheep are eating, how often their paddocks, what their grazing rotations are, what their fecal air counts collected at one point. So this will become quite a cool database to create that benchmarking for the industry.
All right. Sounds absolutely fascinating. So you haven't done a full launch yet. This will be, so the product is sitting there. You'll have it on a beta stage, launch at field days.
Yep. Touch wood, launch at field days. There's a thing you find about what they say in the movie industry, isn't it? Like, never work with animals or children.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think the saying they have in tech world is it's always going to take twice as long and cost 3 times as much.
Yeah. Hey, Sarah, we found that out with our app. But our app's out there. It is. It's almost working properly. So that's.
So I downloaded it this morning.
Yeah. And how did that go?
Great.
Yeah. Well, you'll be able to go back
easy. On the App Store. Go and do it.
Yeah, it is. It's on the App Store. Whichever one. What am I, Play Store, the Apple App Store, whichever. I always get confused. All right. Ryan Luckman, thanks, mate. Really appreciate your time. Good luck and enjoy the rest of your day. You've got to do your speech yet, or be part of it. You're one of the panels later on, aren't you?
Got my own wee session, which is quite good. I get really deep dive into.
Okay. Well, you'll probably get a lot more sensible questions from the sheep and beef farmers than you will from me. So, yeah, enjoy it. All right, mate. I really appreciate that, Ryan Luckman.
CountryWide Connect with Andy Thompson and Sarah Perriam-Lampp.